Title: I accidentally sent a love letter to my boss instead of my partner. So I, 28F, have been dating my boyfriend, Jake, 30M, for about 2 years. Our relationship has been a whirlwind of adventure, from spontaneous road trips to cozy movie nights on the couch. Recently, I decided to write him a heartfelt letter expressing my feelings. Something a little old-fashioned, but I thought it would be a sweet surprise. I spent an entire Sunday crafting the perfect letter. I poured my heart into it, reminiscing about our first date when he took me to that little diner and made me laugh until I cried. I typed it up on my computer, carefully selecting every word, and saved it as letter to Jake in my documents, feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. The next day at work, I was swamped with tasks. My boss, Mr. Thompson, 45M, is known for being a no-nonsense kind of guy. He's the type who expects perfection and doesn't tolerate mistakes. He has this reputation for being stiff, but I've always sensed there's more to him beneath that serious exterior. That day, he asked for a quick update on a project I was leading. In my haste, I opened my email, attached the document, and clicked send without a second thought. The moment I did, a wave of panic washed over me. I realized what I had done. My heart raced as I checked the email thread. There was my mushy love letter, now in my boss's inbox. "Emily, can you explain the status of the project?" he replied, completely oblivious to my blunder. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. What had I done? After a few minutes of internal panic, I decided I needed to act fast. I quickly typed another email. "Sorry, that was not meant for you. Please ignore the previous email." But deep down, I knew it was too late. The damage was done. Minutes later, I got a reply. "No worries, Emily. I appreciate the sentiment. Let's discuss the project during our meeting later." My stomach dropped. How could I face him knowing he read my heartfelt letter? During the meeting, I could barely concentrate. My coworkers were discussing deadlines, and all I could think about was how my boss was going to treat me after this. Would he bring it up? Would he laugh? Finally, he turned to me with a serious expression. "Emily, I really value your creativity. Let's brainstorm some ideas." I couldn't believe it. Was he praising me after reading my love letter? My face was burning, but a part of me felt a strange sense of relief. Later that day, I decided to come clean to Jake. I texted him, "You won't believe what I did." When he finally called, he couldn't stop laughing. "You sent a love letter to your boss? That's epic." He thought it was hilarious and told me I should just own it. If he brings it up, just say it was an expression of your creativity. Make it a joke. I appreciated his support, but I was still cringing at the thought of facing Mr. Thompson again. A few days later, during a casual lunch at the office, Mr. Thompson brought it up. "So, Emily, I must say, your letter was quite touching. I didn't know you had such a way with words." My face turned crimson. Everyone else chuckled, and I managed to laugh it off, but inside I was mortified. As the weeks passed, something strange began to happen. Mr. Thompson started treating me differently. He was more encouraging, complimenting my work in meetings, and even inviting me to lead a new project. I was thrilled but also confused. Was this because of the letter? Jake joked that I should write more letters, but I wasn't sure how far I wanted to push my luck. However, my boss genuinely seemed impressed with my ideas. I couldn't help but think, maybe this was a blessing in disguise. But then came the twist. One Friday, my coworker Sarah, 26F, known for her gossiping, cornered me in the break room. "You know, Emily, I heard Mr. Thompson talking about you after that email mix-up. He's been telling everyone how much he admires your passion." My stomach dropped. I had no idea if this was good or bad. "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "He mentioned needing someone like you for a big presentation next month," she said, her eyes glinting with intrigue. My excitement was mixed with apprehension. I decided to keep my head down and focus on my work, but the whispers around the office grew louder. Weeks later, I was knee-deep in the project, preparing for the presentation. One evening, while finalizing the slides, I received a message from Mr. Thompson. "Can we discuss the presentation over dinner? I have some ideas I'd love to share." My heart raced. Was this a professional meeting or something more? I hesitated but ultimately agreed, thinking I could clarify our boundaries. At the dinner, the atmosphere was oddly tense. Mr. Thompson complimented my work, but kept making personal comments that felt inappropriate. You have such a creative mind, Emily. It's refreshing to see someone so passionate. I felt my stomach twist. Just as I was about to steer the conversation back to business, he leaned in closer and said, I really admire your ambition. It's rare to find someone so driven. The dinner ended with a handshake, but I left feeling unsettled. Back at home, I told Jake everything. He was supportive but also concerned. You need to set boundaries, Em. This doesn't feel right. The next day, I decided to address it directly. I emailed Mr. Thompson, thanking him for the dinner, but clearly stating I preferred to keep our relationship professional. I hit send with a mix of relief and anxiety. To my surprise, he responded quickly. Of course, Emily. I respect your boundaries. I just wanted to express how much I value your contributions. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but my anxiety lingered. As the presentation date approached, I felt more confident. The night before, Jake and I had a heart-to-heart. No matter what happens, just remember why you're there, he said, squeezing my hand. His support was everything. On the day of the presentation, I walked into the conference room filled with executives, including Mr. Thompson. My heart raced, but I focused on the task at hand. I delivered my presentation with passion and clarity. When it was over, the room erupted in applause. Mr. Thompson even stood up, clapping vigorously. Later, he pulled me aside. You did an outstanding job, Emily. I knew you had it in you. The praise felt good, but I couldn't shake the feeling of tension between us. As I was about to leave, he added, let's grab dinner again to celebrate. This time I hesitated. I appreciate it, but I think it's best to keep things professional. His smile faltered for a moment, but then he nodded. Of course. I understand. The next week, everything seemed to be going well. I was thriving in my new role, and my relationship with Jake felt stronger than ever. We often reminisced about the love letter incident, laughing it off as just a funny mishap. But then, I got a shocking email from Mr. Thompson. Emily, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come to my office? My heart raced again. What could this be about? I walked to his office, anxiety bubbling in my stomach. When I entered, he was pacing back and forth. Emily, I need your help with something confidential, he began, his tone serious. I'm in a bit of a situation, and I trust you to keep this between us. I nodded, my curiosity piqued. What is it? He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. I've been working on a major deal with a client, but I think someone in the office is sabotaging me. I need you to help me figure out who it is. My heart raced. This was unexpected. How can I help? I asked, intrigued but also apprehensive. I need you to keep an eye out for anything unusual. Conversations, documents going missing, anything that seems off, he said, looking at me earnestly. If you can help me with this, I promise it'll benefit your career. I was torn. On one hand, I wanted to help him. On the other, this felt risky and complicated. Okay, I'll do my best, I finally said, feeling a mix of apprehension and excitement. As I started to gather information, I found myself increasingly drawn into the web of office politics. I noticed strange things, documents misplaced, co-workers whispering in corners, and Sarah, my gossiping co-worker, acting oddly secretive. One day, I overheard a conversation between Sarah and another co-worker discussing Mr. Thompson's project in hushed tones. I felt a knot in my stomach. Were they the ones sabotaging him? I decided to confront Sarah. I know you're talking about Mr. Thompson's project. What do you know? I pressed, trying to sound casual. She smirked. You really think he's going to get away with everything? You. Reeing way over your head, Emily. I felt a chill run down my spine. What did she mean? Days turned into weeks, and the tension at work was palpable. I started to get anonymous messages warning me to stay away from Mr. Thompson. I shared my concerns with Jake, who urged me to back off. This is getting dangerous, Em. You don't know what you're getting into. But I was too invested to walk away. I continued digging, uncovering more clues, and started to piece together a disturbing picture. Finally, the day came when everything spiraled out of control. During a critical meeting with executives, I discovered that Sarah had been feeding information to a rival company, trying to undermine Mr. Thompson's deal. In a moment of bravery, I stood up during the meeting. I have something to say, I blurted out. All eyes turned to me. Sarah has been sabotaging this project. I have evidence. Gasps echoed in the room. Mr. Thompson looked stunned. What do you mean? He asked, his expression a mix of surprise and concern. I pulled out my notes, detailing everything I had found. This isn't just about office politics. It's about integrity and trust. We can't let this happen. As I spoke, I felt a rush of adrenaline. But the moment was short-lived. Just as I finished, Sarah stormed into the room, face flushed with anger. You have no idea what you're doing, Emily. You're playing with fire. The executives exchanged uneasy glances. Mr. Thompson looked conflicted. Emily, I appreciate your honesty, but we need to discuss this further. Let's take a break. As everyone filed out of the room, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. Had I just put my career on the line? After the meeting, Mr. Thompson pulled me aside. I didn't know you were in this deep. We need to talk about your role in all of this, he said, his tone serious. Just then, I received a text from Jake. Emily, I think you should be careful. I have a bad feeling about this. My heart sank. Was I in over my head? The tension in the air was palpable as I awaited Mr. Thompson's next words. You've shown incredible bravery, but this could backfire. Are you sure you want to pursue this? I hesitated, remembering all the signs, the anonymous messages, and Sarah's threats. But a part of me felt empowered. Yes, I want to see this through, I replied, trying to sound confident. All right, he said, looking me straight in the eyes. But we need to do this carefully. Trust no one, especially not Sarah. As I left his office, I felt a mixture of determination and fear. I was in too deep, and there was no turning back now. But just as I reached my desk, I received another anonymous email. You think you're safe? You have no idea what you're up against. The words sent chills down my spine. Who was behind this? Was it Sarah? Or someone even closer? And just then my phone buzzed again. It was Jake. Meet me at our spot. I need to talk. What did he know? Was he in danger too? As I rushed out of the office, I realized this was far from over. The twists and turns of my life had taken a dark turn, and I had to be ready for whatever was coming next. Update. As I rushed to our usual spot, a small park bench by the river where Jake and I often shared our thoughts, I felt a mix of anxiety and urgency. What could Jake possibly have to say that warranted such urgency? When I arrived, I found him pacing nervously. His expression was serious, and I instantly knew something was off. Emily, I'm really worried about you, he said as I approached. What's going on? Did you hear something? I asked, breathless. He looked around, as if ensuring we weren't being watched. I got a call from a friend who works in HR. They heard about the situation at work, about Sarah, and they said you need to be careful. She's not just gossiping. She's got connections and might retaliate. My stomach dropped. Retaliate how? I asked, dread settling in. Jake hesitated, then took a deep breath. I don't want to scare you, but she has a reputation for being ruthless. If she feels threatened, she could try to destroy your career or worse. I felt a chill run down my spine. I thought I could handle this. I thought I was doing the right thing. You are, he insisted, taking my hands. But you need to be cautious. We should talk to Mr. Thompson together. He needs to know how serious this is. Just as I was about to respond, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at it, and my heart raced. Another anonymous email popped up. You really think you can win against me? You have no idea what I'm capable of. Jake's eyes widened as he read over my shoulder. This is getting out of hand. We can't ignore this. Let's go back to the office. On the way back, I felt a surge of determination. If Sarah was trying to undermine me, I wouldn't let her win. When we arrived at the office, I immediately sought out Mr. Thompson. He was in a meeting, but I knocked on the door anyway. Mr. Thompson, I need to talk to you urgently. He opened the door, his expression shifting from surprise to concern. What is it, Emily? I stepped inside, pulling Jake with me. It's about Sarah. I think she's going to retaliate against me, and I have evidence of her sabotaging the project. His brows furrowed, and he motioned for us to sit. This is serious. I need you to tell me everything you found out. I laid it all out, the conversations, the missing documents, the threats. Jake chimed in with what he'd learned about Sarah's reputation. Mr. Thompson listened intently, his expression growing more serious by the minute. "I'm glad you brought this to my attention," he said finally. "We'll have to take action. I'll speak to HR and launch an investigation. But you both need to be careful. Sarah is resourceful, and I don't want either of you to feel threatened." As we left his office, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. We were finally addressing the issue, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still in danger. That evening, I received yet another anonymous email. "You think you're safe with Mr. Thompson? I know things about him that could ruin you both." My heart raced as I shared the message with Jake. What does this mean? What could she possibly know? "I don't know, but we need to find out," Jake replied, his expression grave. The next day, we decided to do some digging of our own. I combed through office records, looking for any signs of wrongdoing that might connect Sarah to the sabotage. Meanwhile, Jake contacted some of his friends in the industry, trying to gather intel on her past actions. As we gathered information, we uncovered something shocking. Sarah had been involved in unethical practices at her previous job, including leaking confidential information and manipulating team dynamics. This was bigger than I had imagined. Just when we thought we were getting a handle on things, I received a call from Mr. Thompson. "Emily, we need to meet. It's urgent." Jake and I hurried to his office, where he looked more stressed than ever. "I just got word from HR. They found evidence against Sarah, but she's claiming that you fabricated everything. She's trying to turn this around on you." I felt my heart drop. "What? How can she do that?" "She's using her connections and painting you as a liar," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "We need to prepare a defense." The situation was spiraling out of control. Just as we were discussing our next steps, Sarah burst into the office, a smug smile on her face. "You think you can take me down, Emily? You don't know who you're dealing with." "Sarah, this needs to stop," Mr. Thompson said firmly. "You're crossing a line." She laughed, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're protecting her? You've really lost your mind. I've got dirt on both of you. You think you're untouchable?" Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone. "I've got some very interesting photos and messages that could ruin your reputations. Are you sure you want to play this game?" Panic washed over me. I could see the glint of victory in her eyes. But instead of backing down, I took a deep breath and spoke up. "Go ahead, Sarah. Show everyone your true colors. We have evidence of your misconduct. It'll be your word against mine." Her expression faltered for a brief moment, and I could see her calculating her next move. "You think this is over? I'll make sure you regret this," she shot back before storming out. After she left, Mr. Thompson turned to us, his expression serious. "You two have to be careful. I'll support you, but this is going to get messy." Jake and I exchanged worried glances. The stakes had never been higher, and it felt like we were walking a tightrope. As we prepared for the fallout, I realized I had to confront my own fears. I couldn't let Sarah intimidate me. I decided to gather as much evidence as I could, emails, messages, and any documentation of her wrongdoings. The next few days were a blur of meetings and tension, but I felt empowered, determined to fight back. With Jake by my side, we were ready to face whatever came our way. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. HR called a meeting to address the allegations, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. Sarah sat across the table, a self-satisfied smirk on her face, while I felt a mix of determination and dread. Mr. Thompson presented the evidence we had collected against her. I could see her composure falter as the details unfolded. The atmosphere shifted as HR laid out their findings, confirming Sarah's history of misconduct. In that moment, I knew we were on the right path. But then, just when I thought we were winning, Sarah pulled out a USB drive. "And I have something that will blow this whole thing wide open," she declared, her confidence returning. My heart raced as she plugged it into the computer. "This is going to show that Emily has been manipulating information and colluding with Jake to take me down." As the screen lit up, I held my breath. But instead of incriminating evidence, a video played. A recording of Sarah discussing her plans to sabotage Mr. Thompson's project and undermine his authority. Gasps filled the room, and Sarah's face turned ashen. "No, this is a lie," she shouted, but the evidence was irrefutable. When the meeting ended, it was clear that Sarah's days at the company were numbered. The relief that washed over me was overwhelming, but I also felt a tinge of sadness. This battle had taken a toll on all of us. As I walked out of the meeting room with Jake, he squeezed my hand. "We did it, Emily. We stood up for what was right." But just as I thought we could finally breathe easy, I received another message from the anonymous sender. "You think you've won? This isn't over. You've made a powerful enemy." My heart sank as I realized the threats weren't finished. What had I gotten myself into? As I glanced at Jake, I could see the concern etched on his face. "We need to stay vigilant. I won't let anything happen to you," he vowed. I nodded, steeling myself for whatever came next. We had faced down one challenge, but the shadow of Sarah lingered, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our fight was far from over. As we walked out of the office, I made a silent promise to myself. I would be ready. Whatever twist awaited us in the future, I wouldn't back down. Update. The weeks that followed the meeting with HR were tense but productive. Sarah was placed on administrative leave while an official investigation took place. I was relieved, but the lingering threat of her retaliating still loomed over me like a dark cloud. Jake and I worked closely with Mr. Thompson, gathering every piece of evidence we could. We documented Sarah's previous misdeeds and spoke with co-workers who could corroborate our claims. I felt a sense of purpose, but with each passing day, I couldn't shake the anxiety of the anonymous threats I continued to receive. One evening, as I was wrapping up some work, I received a call from Jake. "Emily, we need to meet. I found something out about Sarah." My heart raced. "What is it?" "Just meet me at our spot," he urged. When I arrived, I could see the tension on Jake's face. "What did you find?" I asked, my pulse quickening. He pulled out his phone and showed me a series of messages he had uncovered from a mutual acquaintance who had worked with Sarah. "She's been planning something. She's trying to rally support from others who dislike Mr. Thompson. If she can spin this situation in her favor, she might come back even stronger." I felt a chill. We can't let that happen. We need to warn Mr. Thompson. As we rushed back to the office, I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on us. When we arrived, Mr. Thompson was in a meeting. We waited anxiously outside until he emerged. "Emily, Jake, what's going on?" he asked, noting our urgency. "Sarah is trying to turn people against you. She's not going down without a fight," I explained, urgency in my voice. He frowned, considering the implications. "We need to act fast. I'll call an emergency meeting with the executives and HR. We need to ensure everyone knows the truth before she can spin her narrative." The next day, the atmosphere in the office was electric. Employees whispered in hushed tones as rumors about Sarah's behavior spread. Mr. Thompson addressed the entire team, outlining the situation and presenting the evidence we had gathered against her. When Sarah's name was mentioned, the room fell silent. I could see her seething from the back of the room, her expression a mix of anger and desperation. "While we're handling this situation, I want to assure you all that integrity and honesty are at the core of our values," Mr. Thompson said firmly. "Anyone who feels threatened or uncomfortable should come to HR immediately." As he spoke, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. This was the turning point we had been fighting for. Later that week, HR concluded their investigation and made their findings public. Sarah was terminated for her unethical behavior, and the office breathed a collective sigh of relief. I couldn't believe we had finally prevailed. But even as the dust settled, the anonymous messages didn't stop. One evening, I received a final text. "You may have won this battle, but I will be back. You'll regret crossing me." I showed it to Jake, and we both felt a renewed sense of unease. "I thought we were done with this," I said, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I don't know who this is, but we need to report it," Jake said, determination in his voice. We went to Mr. Thompson, who immediately took action. He implemented new security measures and assured us that if anything escalated, the company would have our backs. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to normal. I focused on my work and deepening my relationship with Jake. I realized that despite the turmoil, I had grown stronger and more resilient. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was still lurking in the shadows. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I spotted a figure across the street. My heart raced as I squinted through the darkness. but whoever it was disappeared into the night. Just my imagination, I told myself, trying to quell my anxiety. The following weeks were filled with small victories. I was offered a promotion due to my hard work and commitment to the company, and I felt proud of how far I'd come. Jake supported me every step of the way, his presence a constant source of strength. But one fateful Friday, as I was leaving for the day, I received a phone call. It was Mr. Thompson. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come to my office?" Concern washed over me as I made my way back. When I entered, he looked serious. "We've received some unsettling news about Sarah. It seems she's been trying to reach out to former employees and stirring trouble. We need to be on high alert." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What should we do?" "We'll keep the lines of communication open and ensure everyone knows what's happening. But I want you to take extra precautions. Avoid being alone in the office, and let someone know where you are at all times," he advised. I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. That night, I shared everything with Jake. "I'm scared, Jake. What if she tries to retaliate?" He pulled me close, looking into my eyes. "You're stronger than you realize. We'll face this together. I won't let anything happen to you." As the weeks went on, I remained vigilant, but life started to feel normal again. I threw myself into my work, focusing on the future. Jake and I planned a weekend getaway, hoping to escape the stress and uncertainty. But just as I thought we could finally relax, I received an unexpected call from an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered. "Emily," a voice said, cold and unyielding. "You don't know me, but I have information about Sarah. If you want to keep yourself safe, meet me at the old warehouse by the river tomorrow at 3 p.m. My heart raced. Who is this? No time for questions. "If you want answers, be there," the voice said before hanging up. I turned to Jake, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. "I got a call. Someone has information about Sarah." Jake's expression turned serious. "We can't go alone. We need to involve Mr. Thompson." The next day, we met with Mr. Thompson and shared the details. He agreed to accompany us, knowing the potential danger we faced. As we arrived at the old warehouse, a chill ran through me. The place was abandoned and dark, and the air was thick with tension. "Stay close to me," Jake whispered, his grip on my hand tight. We cautiously made our way inside, and as we reached the center of the warehouse, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a former employee, someone I recognized from the office. "I have information about Sarah," she said, her voice shaky. "She's been planning to sabotage the company from the inside. She's not done yet." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" "She has allies, people who still work there and are unhappy with Mr. Thompson. They're planning to bring him down," she revealed, her eyes darting nervously. Mr. Thompson stepped forward. "We need names. We can't let this go any further." As the former employee hesitated, the door suddenly creaked open, and Sarah stepped inside, flanked by two other individuals. Well, look who decided to join the party," she sneered, her expression triumphant. I felt a rush of panic. "What are you doing here?" "I came to finish what I started," she replied, her voice dripping with malice. "You've made it personal, Emily, and now you'll pay. Get away from her," Jake shouted, stepping protectively in front of me. Sarah laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "You think you can protect her? You're all in over your heads. I have everything planned out." In that moment, I realized the gravity of the situation. We were outnumbered and in real danger. But I refused to back down. "Sarah, this ends now," I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "You can't control the situation anymore. You're the one who will lose." "Is that so?" she challenged, stepping closer. "You think you have power here?" Mr. Thompson took a step forward, his authority commanding the room. "You're finished, Sarah. We know what you've been up to. You've crossed the line, and it's time to face the consequences." Suddenly, the former employee, sensing the shift in power, spoke up. "I'll tell you everything. Sarah's not working alone. She has connections with others who want to see you all fail." Just as the tension peaked, the sound of sirens pierced the air, and the lights of police cars flashed outside. Sarah's expression shifted from confidence to panic. "What? How did they find us?" she stammered, glancing at her allies. "Your time is up," Mr. Thompson declared, stepping closer. As the police burst through the door, Sarah and her accomplices exchanged frantic looks, realizing their plan had unraveled. They attempted to flee, but the officers apprehended them quickly. In the aftermath, we stood outside the warehouse, watching as Sarah was taken into custody. The former employee had provided enough evidence to bring her down for good. As the adrenaline faded, I turned to Jake, relief washing over me. It's finally over. He pulled me into a hug. You were amazing, Emily. I'm so proud of you. I smiled, feeling a sense of closure. We had faced our fears and emerged stronger together. In the weeks that followed, the company began to heal, and I received recognition for my courage in standing up against Sarah. Mr. Thompson's leadership was reinforced, and I found a renewed sense of purpose in my work. Jake and I decided to take our getaway as planned, heading to a cabin in the woods. Surrounded by nature, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. As we sat by the fire, I looked at Jake, grateful for his unwavering support. We made it through together. He smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the flames. And whatever comes next, we'll face it as a team. In that moment, I realized that despite the chaos and uncertainty, I had emerged stronger than ever. I was ready for whatever life threw my way. As the night deepened, I felt hopeful. The twists and turns of this journey had brought me to a place of strength, and I knew that no matter what, I would always choose to stand up for what was right.